And once again, we want to say greetings to each and every one of you. Akwaba and welcome. Welcome to another round of Culturally Conscious Communications here on the LIB Radio, LIB TV, and LivingInBlack.com network. My name is Kedia Wadu, a.k.a. The Conscious Roster. Weekday mornings, we are live here on LIB Radio from 9 a.m. Pacific Time. That's 12 noon Eastern Time, 5 p.m. GMT, and 7 p.m. East Africa Time. We get together with you, and we deal with culture, consciousness, historical perspectives, entertainment, economics, education, health, labor, law, politics, religion, family, conflict, future studies, all areas of human interactivity and human development. Today's date is Friday, the 23rd of February. Corresponds to the year 6258 in the Kemetic calendar, to which we have realigned our cultural clock. Welcome to the 7th millennium. You have found your family in a peaceful place here on LIB Radio, LIB TV, and LivingInBlack.com. Really got a great show for you today. Stick around. In fact, tell your friends to tell their friends that they don't want to miss today's show. This is about reality. Join us today with our returning guest, Brother Bomani Tyehimba, founder of the African Tour and Investment Development Group, AfricaForTheAfricans.org, as we discuss the powerful impact that the Black Panther movie is having on people of African heritage and all other ethnic groups. The way that this film portrays the transforming power, integrity, and potential of authentic African culture, we see an opportunity to bring more of us along on African tours to witness this transformation firsthand. Let me bring in my guests. Joining us out of metropolitan Atlanta, Brother Bomani is in the house. Akwaba, welcome, Brother Bomani.
Greetings, Kedia.
We got you in the mix right now, as today we want to focus as we discuss this powerful impact that the Black Panther movie is having on people of African heritage, and especially that the way that this, and not just African people, but all ethnic groups around the world are responding very positively to this movie production. The way that this film portrays the transforming power, integrity, and potential of authentic African culture, we can see an opportunity to bring more of us along on these African tours to witness this transformation firsthand. Your thoughts about the movie in the context of being a transforming moment?
Excellent, Kedia. Appreciate the energy. Yes, my son and I saw the movie when it came out Friday, February 16th, and one of the things that we've been talking about since I've been traveling to the African continent from 2004 all the way to now is the fact that we don't have enough positive, progressive images as far as Africa to interest people to wanting to go, to live, to do business. So what we have always done is we go to the different countries and document information at the highest level as far as videos and pictures of the beauty of the country, the investment, what's going on, connecting with the people, networking, shopping, and that's the complete climate. And for the first time in my life, this movie just brought it to like $250 million of just marketing to push the beauty, the progressiveness of Africa, and all of the possibilities of what we as a people can do and accomplish. When we think about futurism, it's just really based on the concept of us using what we have in place as far as technology and building on progressively. And that film showcased an incredible fictitious African country, which we can see that we can build in the future. And as a matter of fact, Africa, certain countries are very modern and updated. As a matter of fact, we're traveling to Ghana and the different parts of Ghana. We saw the greatness of a country like Ghana, and we think about, imagine if colonialism wasn't rampant and took over the country, and all of our brothers and sisters that were stolen during the transatlantic European slave trade. If those things didn't happen, what could be the future of the African continent? So we can't change the past, but we can look at the future, and this helps because you have still so much of our own brothers and sisters. It's difficult to have a conversation about them as far as Africa being a continent that you go to, and the different countries that you live in and do things. So, this is a good start, and it's a good foundation that we can build on. And I'm not saying that this movie saved the day for us, but we have to look at the things that we have access to, and then also look at the fact that our brothers and sisters who were the integral part of this movie did the research, did the work, and we should celebrate their contribution.
That's right. You make so many excellent points. I'm going to go back to the point that you made that if so many of us had not been removed from African history and African development, what could we be at this point? Well, let's be really, really clear, because I think the movie on so many levels shows it's a mirror to this what if question. But here's the thing. Demographically, and my new book out, Futurism, deals with the sciences of economics, of which demographics, the counting of numbers and the way that people fit into development, that using the demographics, one, we see that the ones who did survive the transatlantic journey were integral to building the core wealth of the entire Western Hemisphere. You agree with that point?
Absolutely. This is it's complete contribution.
Mm-hmm. So, as we can imagine, they have contributed to the core wealth of the entire Western Hemisphere, essentially, and there's no denying that. Now we see this phenomena of the theft and the stolen human labor, human capital from Africa that took place over the course of 500 years. According to my demographic works, and I've been doing these demographic works on Africa's would-be population since the early 1990s, Africa was missing 600 people indigenously on the continent from its development during this period from 1600 going forward. 600 million people. Bomani, over the next 35 years, there are 1 billion, with a B, new Africans coming to the continent. It's the youngest part of the planet. Uganda, officially the youngest nation on earth. What I am saying is these people that were missing are being replaced within the next 35 years, plus another 75 or 70% above the ones missing. And we have the potential, Brother Bomani, of 300 million African people scattered around the world in the African diaspora, having built skills and talents and experiences that all can come home. And over the next 35 years, Brother Bomani, I am saying we can accomplish the absolute reality that was seen in that movie, the Black Panther. Your thoughts on what I've just proposed?
Yes, Kitty. I mean, all these things are very possible. When we look at the European nations and America and look at their development and look at how they're formed, we look at the great brain drain of the African continent, and we can account it for even from the last 500 years as a consistent drainage of some of the best minds from the African continent. Mm-hmm. So, while we have these great minds that are here and they're contributing to the development of America and Europe, we can connect back with these minds, and even the generation that you mentioned that are coming up, we put ourselves in the proper position to put things in place so that generation can thrive, which is, I think, one of the most important things that we should do. Then we can really see this in our lifetime. Mm-hmm. And, because we have a lot of the resources now, which are the technology advancement, finance, and so on. As a matter of fact, when we talk about finance, look at the contributions of what we have done to gross this movie, with box office record. Mm-hmm. You're talking about the turnout on the entire African continent and the turnout in, Black America, and then just the turnout of everybody else in general. But it shows you that, we can show up. A lot of times we don't show up, but this is one instance where we show up and we can culminate that energy and say, hey, if we showed up here and then we took that energy to that next level, and instead of just wearing that African cultural clothing for one day, and then we reinvent our life to where we're living and doing business with our own, and we're doing it at a higher level, we can begin to see these things. And then if we literally start participating more on the level of investments and the development that's going on in the African continent, these things can gradually change realistically in the next 5 to 10 years to where you have super African nations that are beginning to build the factories that they need and be able to create employment for our people. So all these things are in divine fate and order, and we just got to be, we have the energy going right now. It's just time for us to take it to that next level.
And another major important part of this show and why I like having you on, and we bring you back frequently to LAB Radio, is that the overwhelming majority of people of African heritage living in the United States, some 48 million of us, 2 million of which are immigrants from other countries living among us. The overwhelming majority of our people don't really have a clear vision, a clear comprehension of what Africa is about, where Africa is, where it's moving, how it's moving. A lot of our people, their visions and their ideas of Africa still have been shaped by the tremendous amount of negative propaganda that has existed for the last 100 years about Africa, as well as significant negative and/or confusing propaganda about African Americans, who I think to too great extent believe that they are an island that can stand alone apart from Africa, amalgamated and integrated into America. The vision of the African Union's Agenda 2063 document. Are you familiar with that document?
Not so much. If you want to give us a quick overview.
Yeah, I do write about it in my new book, Futuronomics, which I do believe I sent you a digital download of it.
Oh, yeah, the first few chapters, which was excellent.
Okay,
well,
well,
put things in perspective.
Yeah, I'll have to get to the whole book because later we go extensively into the infrastructure of Africa that has been created over the last 50 years and how it's now rapidly expanding to deliver those super nations that you had talked about. The first super nation is expected somewhere between 2020 and 2025. And that'll be the East African community. But Agenda 2063. Everybody out there, write that down. Somebody, I'll push it up in the links. You have to know about this document. On the 50th anniversary of the founding of the Organization of African Unity, the AU, which was the successor organization to the OAU, gathered in Addis Ababa, or they may have gathered in Egypt, I think, for this particular meeting. And they came up with this program, this protocol called Agenda 2063, which was the goals for, and that was in 2013 that they gathered. The goals were for the next 50 years of African development. And they laid it out in this document with some 71 or so particular points of action and a smaller number of principal focuses. Agenda 2063. The goal is to see a confederation of the African states, some 54 nations, one nation in dispute, a federation of them by the year 2051, and then further development by 2063 that would essentially, Brother Bomani, deliver us to this vision that in the movie, and related to the movie, is called Wakanda Time. In reality, it's called Africa Rising.
Yeah, I like how you connect both of those, Africa Rising and Wakanda Time, as that the connection to the possibility. You and I have talked about that incredible Atlantic development right there in West Africa. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we're doing reviews on this movie, but the reality of going to these African countries and doing the research, they've never done that. So you're not getting the full layout. But we do have futuristic nations in place, and I appreciate you going over that vision of our brothers and sisters from the African Union, because a lot of times we don't think that we have things in place, and this is a perfect layout because a lot of the work is going to take a period of time. So the drawn out to lay that out and to put the work in now is perfect. So definitely like the fact that we can literally connect people to something realistic in reference to the fictional nation of Wakanda and connect them to the future of the possibilities of Africa and what's really getting put in place. Mm-hmm. And you're one of the best researchers, so I get a lot of update information from you. Even though I'm on the African continent, I've been through 9 countries, and we're constantly in African countries, connecting and doing our best to network and build relationships. But I like the way you take your research. It's on an incredible level.
Well, I appreciate that. And you and I are, of course, fingers on the same hand. And this is a hand of empowerment, self-determination, Kujichagulia, all of these positive values that we've strived to reinforce, to rebirth, and to give to our people. And Brother Bomani, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I've received your compliment with the on authenticity and integrity to deliver it. But my credibility has been extremely enhanced because of my relationship with Africa for the Africans. I've had the chance to travel to the continent 7 times now, 3 of which were with Africa for the Africans. Was it 3 or 4? 4 of which, I believe, with Africa for the Africans. And I tell you, it is because of these travels that I now can speak with authenticity, being a direct witness not only to the glories of being on the motherland and being in the midst of African people who embrace us with such love and you know, such a powerful embrace, but also the fact that the reason I like the Africa for the African tours is there's an investment development component directly at the core of these tours. We're not just going there to point at the glories, pound our chest and say, look what we did in past generations. All of that's well and good. But then the question becomes, what are we doing now and what are we planning to do over the next few decades? Isn't that a core of what Africa for the Africans.org is all about?
Absolutely. We have to really just put things in place for the future and really just have that strong vision. Like one of the things that we have put in place is we've gotten, for the first time, we've gotten the 2.2 acres of land that we need to build the enterprise that I've put in place, which is Africa for the Africans Tours and Investment, Bomani Technology Service Support and Consultation, and just a stronger connection to the repatriation movement. So we have the land right in the center of Ghana, right there by Benue Village in Techiman, in the Brong-Ahafo region of Ghana. And Malcolm X talked about it, Marcus Garvey talked about it, building independence, getting the real estate we need and building the foundation for our enterprise and then connecting with each other. So everything from here on, and that's why I love the flow of Futurenomics, because everything is pointing to trends of things that have happened in the past and where things are going. That way we can look back and say, you know what, we missed all of these trends and we weren't really prepared for a lot of things, but now, you know, we see where the future is going. Let's jump onto it. So it was important to get the land. It's important for us to invest in these sectors there in Ghana, and you know the returns are incredible. We have a Treasury bill business account where it generates some incredible returns, and then the land itself. Once we start doing land development, we're able to build all the things that we need, our own infrastructure of electricity, water, being able to drink the cleanest, purest water versus drinking the toilet city water, and you know, internet and things like that. You know, when we talk about building satellite systems and to be able to just use the phone system with satellite and develop our own internet service to where we can pay the country of Ghana for satellite service, since Ghana and other African nations are more into that business of launching satellites and getting on top of the high-tech game. So everything is really being put in place for us to take this thing to that next level. And, you know, it's just we as the brothers and sisters from the African diaspora have to be a more integral part of the future of Africa, and those things really based on the experience of us coming to Africa and doing things. And that's why I always appreciate you coming with us, because when you came, you reached out to other brothers and sisters with incredible backgrounds, and you know, this energy of what we've been doing has been building. It may be on a small scale, but that's all you need at times. You build things from a micro level and work your way up. And you know, you've seen us now, Kidi, in business 11 strong years and still going.
That's right. That's right. Africa for the Africans.org. Let me welcome in our listening audience. You should join the conversation. You may have some questions about the movie, about its relevance, about Africa for the Africans, about Brother Bomani, who himself is an IT specialist, and the various skills that we have that can be applied to this development. All very important. But we want to hear your voice at area code 646-716-9835. When in the Blog Talk Radio queue, hit the 1 button on your phone. It'll send me a flag and let me know you have something you want to contribute to the program. Those phone numbers are on the front page of LIB Radio, so don't hesitate. Share your voice. Stand out from the crowd, people. Raise your voice. Raise your hand. Ask a question. You know, the first time I went to Africa, Brother Bomani, I had gone to Egypt. And on the second day there, the ambassador from Zimbabwe to Egypt, as well as the governor of the Harare district, the capital of Zimbabwe, spoke to our group. And I was very intrigued with what they had to say. I raised my hand and asked 1 or 2 questions of them. And then later, when they were greeting people, I kind of patiently waited and asked another question. Later that evening, I was at dinner with our group, and someone came over and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Excuse me, but the governor and the ambassador would like you to join them at their table for dinner."
Excellent.
Brother Bomani, I was humbled. They asked me a few more questions, and then they said, "We want you to take this message back to America, to tell the black farmers to come home. We need your experience, your expertise, your ability to operate modern technological farming. We will have the land for you. We just need you to come." Unfortunately, when I spoke to the 2 largest black farmer organizations, they weren't interested. But doggone it, it was a powerful vision. And isn't it true, Brother Bomani, that when those of us who may not necessarily be completely appreciated here go home to Africa, that we are recognized for the tremendous potential to helping to build these nations? Isn't it true that these high-level politicians go out of their way to come and see us?
Absolutely. And when they're reaching out to us and we're not coming through, that's when they start turning to the Asians.
That's right.
And so we have to realize that, that the opportunity is there. And part of what we have to really start investing in is the technology. The technology is definitely the difference maker. For people like yourself or myself, the amount of work that we can do, because you don't have 10 people working at your office just like me, but we get the incredible amount of work done, and that's based on the access of technology. But not only that, but being able to use it in a more productive manner.
That's right. Speaking of technology, opportunity is everywhere. In the book Futurism, we lay out many of these opportunities. I did the same thing in the previous book called The Repairing. You'd speak about IT, ICT. In the book Futurism, at one point I list 39 disruptive technologies. These are technologies that are coming online that are going to completely disrupt everything. Many of the people listening, I say everyone listening, has some access to some skill, resource, or inside knowledge. A person might work at a waste treatment facility in America, just pushing buttons and whatever, making sure, monitoring the equipment that treats urban sewage waste. If that same person took 1 year or 2 years, Brother Bomani, at their job and said, "I'm not going to just sit here at this console and computer and push buttons. I want to know who wrote the computer program. I want to know how is this buttons I'm pushing connected to sensors, connected to motors, connected to processes throughout this factory. On my lunch break, I'm going to walk this entire factory that I work in and talk to department heads and make great friends with them, invite them over to my house for dinner. Because when I leave this company, I'm going to compete against this company in another market." Isn't it true that someone who worked at a waste treatment factory learned all of the components that made that factory work, that they could go to Africa and maybe set up a private corporation and have contracts with cities and counties and governments?
Brother Kitty, that's the only way to think. We're working on these jobs. We have to, and not saying that everybody is going to be open to it, but we have to take advantage of all of the opportunities in the level of training, the level of management, because these developed nations have used all aspects of the world's resources, including a lot of ours, and have made this modern day system and made a system of business management that we can use and modify it a little bit and make it work for ourselves in the African continent. And we talked about at one point, America was just like the manufacturing chain of the world. That's not so much anymore, but we saw the difference of what that made. That employed a lot of our brothers and sisters in urban communities all across the nation, especially, we talk about the Midwest and the Northeast where the factories were. So the same concept we have to think about in Ghana, or just the African continent in general, especially those of us who, you can only work so long at a job, a corporation or a plantation job for so long. But so while you're there, just learn all the things you need to learn to put yourself in a position where your children, your family can build a future, but not just build it here in America. Use it to take it to another level and build it in the African continent. So that's why it's important that we keep doing these tours and keep having business investment conference and having all the network we do around Ghana. That way, when the more of our people are open to transferring these skills, we're in a perfect position to make it work for them. Because one of the things is, you really have to come to the motherland with a plan. Our sister, Dr. Sharita, is here. That's been in Ghana for 11 years. She's going around and sharing information about being prepared and being organized. So that's another great importance. You have the skills, you have all of the research and the know-how, but now it's time for us to get you connected into the African culture so you know how to carry yourself and know how to connect. And that's one of the strong points I love about the movie Black Panther. It showed Eric Killmonger as being, someone like myself or others in the African diaspora. You go to the African continent and you want to do great things. You want to take over. You want to connect. But you don't have the natural cultural connection. So you may be considered outsider. So that's one of the things we have to do. We have to embrace what's going on the continent. Don't just come with our high-tech ways and then want to overlook the culture. And it's another great point you made in what we were talking about. The princess, the brother from the gorilla tribe was saying she's all advanced and everything, but she's not really embracing our culture. So that's one of the things that we have to do, especially when we build in our younger generations, that the culture is one of the most important thing if you're going to do anything in the African continent. And eventually we're going to have to get more into learning the different languages to really connect and fit in. So I'm just always excited about this because I just see a positive future for us, especially when people have painted that, we don't have a future. So you, I, and the people who see this and have been out there in the African continent and have traveled and moved around, we really have to bring this home to more of our brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm. Brother Bomani, to the contrary, there are others who deem themselves black nationalists or Moorish nationalists or Pan-African, whatever, who don't necessarily share your and my visions about the next 35 years and more of development of Africa. I call them afro-pessimists. Have you ever heard any dialogues that make the suggestion that us putting all this attention into traveling to Africa and repatriating and building in Africa is contrary to our best self-interest?
Yes, brother. Especially when I first started, I've been able to build a little strong energy, and that's one thing about when you're a visionary. You see certain things based on research and based on things just like you laid out in Futuronomics, but other people don't get it. So you're consistently dealing with a struggle of explaining things to people about the African continent, about the things that you can do and make happen, and they're constantly coming at you like, we built this, we built America, I'm not going over there, them people sold me, I don't want to have it. It's from those comments to even that, well, if I go to Africa and I build a community, then the next person who becomes king, if he wants to dominate us and put us in slavery and take our land, he can do that. And I mean, it's like completely ridiculous amount of things that you hear. So, and that's why it's important that we build a strong experience on traveling, not only just the African continent, the world, so we can compare experience. I've been fortunate from the age of just 18 to 20, started traveling to now 20 years later, and been to 6 continents and 30 plus countries. But the opportunities available for more and more of us. There's more jet planes being made. The money that we make from our jobs and things, we can cut back on buying some of the things that we spend a lot of money on, clothing, things that just don't really do anything for us, and just invest that into the technology I talk about, but also an experience in Africa to where we can see the value. So we have to push this thing on all levels. So the movie brought home a whole lot, because I'm thinking about the younger generation of young brothers and sisters who don't even know what Africa is in their sense. So now they're growing up in a mindset where this fictional nation, Wakanda, is being talked about, and now it opens their mind up to seeing what real Africa is about. So I'm excited about this, and we have to just watch out for the people who every minute they always have they complain about everything, and you can never satisfy them, but they're not open to building anything. So I just call them the people who just complain about everything and not willing to build anything. Because one of the things that people like myself always complain about is like all of the negative stereotypes of black people in film, all of the homosexual acts that's in films, and I didn't see this. And then one of the worst things you always see black women being portrayed as like just ratchety women and very loose. And you have a film where the women are being portrayed as African queens, princess, warriors, and I just love it. And then you still have these people complaining.
The greatest technician in the world is a young African woman that's portrayed in this movie. Isn't that the truth?
Absolutely, and you still have people that's complain about something, and it's like, all right, if you really want to see 100% black film that's made with all of your money, put your money together, connect with the film industry, Nollywood and Gollywood, and make these movies, but it's like, if you guys are not willing to do these things, be thankful for the people who are willing to at least take the energy to a certain level, because it was our people who brought this to people who can put the money on the table, and they laid out and did the work. That's right. But it's just unfortunate, and a lot of times this energy is coming from the so-called conscious people, the people that are supposed to know better, but it's like they're falling into the trap where they're reading into so much information, and it's just cool and just excellent just to know things, but it's not enough just to know things and be so-called smart and breaking down racism and white supremacy. It's like you have to look at the realistic warfare, what we're dealing with, and what it's really based on is images and all the negative things that we've been portrayed. I still think about all the starving children in Ethiopia when I was in Jamaica and we saw TV, and we're poor in Jamaica and we're struggling, and then we're like, wow, that's going on in Africa. I mean, but it's just stuck in our heads as children. Even today, we still talk about it. So, we just got to keep pushing certain things. And for the people who really feel a certain way that, white people are making all this money from this film and we're just being excited about it, you should step your game up. And if you're not willing to step your game up, then, your comments are irrelevant. But, I guess everybody's entitled to your opinion. But, we have to just really just look at, are we going to continue to just be negative about everything? And we are living in the world that we live in, and which is what it is, So people are going to be pointing out that why they got the CIA at Wakanda, why they saved them, and all kind of stuff. It's hilarious though, but I've never seen so much buzz in general about anything black.
That's right, and the box office numbers are still keep rolling higher and higher. As of yesterday, reported in Variety that Black Panther movie has taken on, since the end of the weekend when it set the fifth all-time first weekend grossing movie in America, and took in another $14.5 million. It's expected to cross $300 million of intake within its first week by about the sixth day or so, as well as Black Panther will cross the $500 million mark in worldwide box office on Thursday. And Disney, which has had a phenomenal year so far, has grossed $1 billion in global box office, and Black Panther movie is almost half of all Disney's gross for the year. So, hey, enough respect to the leaders and visionaries at Disney Corp and at Marvel Comics, or now Marvel Films, for having the vision to invest in something so critically, thematically African. Meanwhile, Brother Bomani, African Americans just invested during the months of November and December, I estimate $62 billion with a B dollars in ho-ho-ho holiday shopping. And over the long Christmas season, which is a little bit before Halloween through mid-January, $77 billion in ho-ho-ho. And some people would complain about Marvel and Disney investing $200 million in the Black Panther movie. At a certain point, isn't it true that these afro-pessimistic voices are almost completely irrelevant? I'm not going to write them off completely, but almost completely irrelevant I heard one of them complain of black people going to the movie theaters in costumes. My God, they were in costumes. They were African traditional ethnic clothing.
Brother, if that's what it takes for us to have a movie out to get people to open to wear African culture, I am all for it. We have to look at the reality of what people like myself who do the marketing of trying to get our people open to Africanness. It's difficult, and you have to try all kind of things. But the thing of it is, once our people are open to things, they're gonna grow on it. So that's good for us, because then we just have to let our folks know we have a lot of our people that are doing African culture and clothing, and you can purchase and support that black-owned business. We have to begin to flip these things and make it work for ourselves. But these afro-pessimistic, as you call them, or I call them, fake pro-black or fake conscious folks. I'm almost to the point where I'm just over it, because it's like. It's like if they're not complaining about one thing, they're complaining about the next. But the thing of it is, where are the pro-blacks and the pro-conscious people that are really out there doing the things and that's talking what they're talking? Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at what we're gonna do, and not so much other people. Will put themselves in a position to market and make the money they make from all the things that we like, and we're involved in. It's what it is. If we don't like it, then then appeal to your own brothers and sisters, for marketing. Just like I realized that the travel business and industry was incredible, and brothers and sisters are taking all kind of trips to all kind of parts of the world with all kind of people. So I did the work, and I reached out to my brothers and sisters. And when we build it, our people will come. But if we don't build nothing and talk about it, our people keep on doing things with other people. So it's what it is. And let this be a lesson to all of us.
That's right. This is a critical lesson. Again, the phone line is open. Area code 646-716-9835. Press the 1 button to speak. The time right now, 9:41 a.m. on the West Coast. That makes it 12:41 p.m. for our East Coast listeners. If you're in the UK or Africa, you can always Skype us at LIB Radio. We'll get you right into the conversation. And we welcome anything and everything you have to contribute. You may be one of those afro-pessimists. And you may say, well, you're overlooking this point. I say, well, bring it. Brother Bomani and I have our perspectives based upon our experiences. Your experiences obviously are different. One of the things I have found, Brother Bomani, of all of these voices who have been putting down African travel, African investment, they're saying things like, well, China is just recolonizing Africa. Only one of the ones that I can think of who's been in this pessimistic camp, and he's someone who I always respect, only one of them has been to Africa. The rest of them have not been to the continent. And I asked them a question. They're pessimistic. I can't seem to reshape them to look at something else. I just asked a simple question. Have you been to Africa? And they say no. Is it a part of this transformed consciousness? Is it a critical part that the people need to have firsthand experience traveling to the continent and firsthand experience in dealing with these investment type of conferences that you've been doing over the years?
Oh yes, I'm still there with you. I was looking at us just going through some some of the points that we saw throughout the movie itself before we get to the point where we start closing. That way, we. For the people who haven't seen it, they can process all the different main points. Mm-hmm.
You got the notes that I sent you?
Yeah, I got your notes. Yeah. I read through them.
Well, the very beginning of them, 11 African tribes and cultures are featured within the movie. That is so wonderfully profound that the movie is truly Pan-African. They show the clothes, the cultures. You see the dandies, these guys who dress up real fancy. Those people are there. At one point, they talk about the various tribes that are at the council. You have the border tribes, you have the mountain tribes, you have the mining tribes, you have the water tribes. All of these are very important paradigms or themes that are critical towards the unified development of the continent that you and I are suggesting is the fate of the continent over the next few decades.
Exactly, and the point you made about the 11 points, the flow of that is just the diversity of the African culture that's presented in the movie. Because sometimes people, like, when you talk about Africa, like it's this one language and one cultural way of life, so that's one of the biggest things that was pulled off, the accents, the different cultural dress, the masks, being in the museum with the stolen artifacts, all important key points of us as a people, just being in the Americas and our connection to Africa. Is just all in the layout of the movie. So that's one of the main important part that we showcase. And no other movie have these points that we're pointing out. So it's one of those things we want people to put this in perspective. Not saying that this is just a groundbreaking, this savior for Black folks, but look at the importance. It's hard for someone like myself to showcase these in anything that we have done, and for one film to cover it and lay out importance, it's beautiful. Another thing that we were talking about was Black royalty. The importance of that. And every time I turn around, we see King Arthur, we see all these European great Lord this, God this, and so it's important for our children to see that in place. Mm-hmm. That African people are people of royalty, of culture, of tradition, and this an incredible way of life.
That's right. That's right. The way that African spirituality is woven into the movie as part of their empowerment, their transcendence, their lack of fear of death. This spirituality in the beginning of the movie, they say, we give honor to Bast. Let me say I have this particular quote. Glory to Bast, I am in good health. And this icon of Bast is from ancient Kemet. So it's woven into is this a comic book affair that they're talking about, Brother Bomani? It don't sound like no comic book affair to me.
Yeah, and some people want everything to be like the comic book, but one of the important things when you put brothers and sisters to write something and they realize that this is an important turning point, they're going to make certain adjustments and make it as relevant. I thought the whole movie was relevant to people like me and you who live in America and connect to Africa, and I thought it was just very relevant in all points. And it's relevant because our people had to change some of these things from comic book to reality to what needs to be perceived, and that was just brought home beautifully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also another thing that really impressed me was the writing of this. Now, for all of these, I'm again use the term afro-pessimists, many of them putting down the movie before the movie even comes out, only because really it's associated with white capital, and so therefore they see it's us being colonized again. I don't see them commenting on the two writers, Ryan Coogler and Joe Robert Cole. I thought that these two writers who traveled to Africa to ground themselves in the authenticity of African culture and civilization and common living, I think that they put together something so brilliant, so incredibly brilliant. And the fact that they were able to convince non-black corporations to invest $200 million in making their script into a real movie, wow. What is to complain about there? If you and I wrote a script, I bet it would be pretty doggone good, Bomani. If Absolutely. You and I wrote one and got some white-owned corporations or Chinese or somebody else outside of our people to invest $200 million in it, they'd be angry at you and me.
And sometimes that's what you have to do to make things happen, because a lot of times we have great visions and idea and we bring it home to our folks and they just don't see it. And it's what it is. So, to get things out, you have to do what you have to do, and that's the sacrifice. But the fact that the writers did the research and traveled to the continent and connect and learned about the culture and learned about certain things, it showed the importance of the impact of Africa. Just like when I went for the first few times, my life has been completely changed. And then the fact that our people and the other actors did the same thing too, and also for some of them who needed to brush up on certain things, and none of them really told probably all of the in-depth stories of what they had to do. But I look at what they had to do to bring this home as just any great research, just like the research and just like the world that you and I live in, and all the work that we had to do to learn all the things that we had to do to become proficient at our craft. Mm-hmm. And that is amazing, especially you have to learn a certain African language, and then you have to use that throughout the movie, and you have to remember your lines. Our people were dedicated, and it just shows you how once we're committed to anything at the highest level, we can be the best in the world. And I want our people to take away the greatness of this. And I definitely want to hear you share some more of your other points in the movie, as you list a whole lot, and I'm looking at my list also.
Oh, well, let's go to some of the points that you have put together. We did an extensive program the other day called Wakanda Time, the Black Panther movie, and Futuronomics. I thought that was one of the best shows we've ever done. And that is in our archives, everybody, at 7mac.com. Get that show. One of the best shows we've ever done, and it takes you into the future. Isn't it also very critically necessary, Brother Bomani, that as so much of what we are about is future development, sustainable development, that we bring along the young people along with us? Least they should hang out too long in the conditions that they're in and just live their lives addicted to their mobile phones, social media, and saturated by negative propaganda from their own parents' generation.
And that's like about the part in the movie where the outreach ultimately were to be more involved in the lives of our children and connect them more into incredible programs that can transform them. And we see the different struggle in different urban communities, and if we had certain at a higher level of involvement, a lot of the great minds that are destroyed in that world could be the futuristic geniuses of the world. So what better person than Shuri to lead that energy, and which is this, which is the part I see where, we're realizing that we have to take it home and get our children prepared for the future, because they're not, as we see in Killmonger once, his father was gone and he didn't really have anyone to associate with it. We can just imagine how he grew up just as an angry, frustrated man, and then he's off into the military and he's just trained to be a killer, and he holds that vengeance and to where he is ready to destroy one of the most incredible nations, instead of if he was groomed and brought up in a certain light, he could be a part to where him and the Black Panther work together and build a stronger future for the rest of the African continent. So a lot of things that we can put in place now can change the dynamics of this, and that's what I'm looking at for the whole perspective of just even us connecting more of our children to travel into Africa, and also just more of a younger generation being able to just live and do business in a country like Ghana, which we have a lot of people that's been going back and forth now. So I'm excited about this, and we just all have to play our part, especially those of us that are a little older now, and our focus have to really be now on really, really just dedicating the rest of our lives to the future of our world and getting the generation that's coming up prepared and ready.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the future, and specifically about Africa for the Africans. You've led so many tours, I believe. How many tours have you led to Africa and other African people countries over the last 16 years?
I've done 13 tours on our Business Africa for the Africans, with a combination of 2 of those tours going to Togo and Benin.
That's right.
Then I did 1 tour to Brazil, which is July of last year. But I've been traveling to the African continent from 2004 and been to 9 different countries, and it's been consistent. And now we have our schedule set to go to Africa twice a year. Ghana every May, and then November just got a combination of different countries. So this November, Ethiopia and Tanzania. Then we rotate to Southern Africa with the link to the quad point you talk about, Zambia, day trip to Botswana and Zimbabwe, and you get to just connect right there into this, and it's something that we've never done before, and open people's minds up to the beauty and the possibilities of the investment. So look into the space things out, but those are the main countries that we have going.
And this trip coming up in 2019, the fall trip to the Quadra Point region, it's so critically important. I'm convinced, Brother Bomani, that the background to the movie, The Black Panther, Some have suggested that it was Lake Turkana, but I'm convinced it was more the Quadra-Points region, where so-called Victoria Falls, or Mosi Oatunya, which is the indigenous African name for this falls, what they call it, the
smoke that thunders.
Yeah, Mosi Oatunya. That I'm convinced that should be highly stimulated and motivated by those who saw the movie and kind of want to see it in real life. But I say to them, we can take you there, and I'm going to be on that trip with you, Brother Monty. I'm going to be on the Africa for the Africans.org trip on that one. I hope to do the Ethiopia trip as well. But I'm going to say we'll show you the area, but you have to understand we're 35 years in the future is the vision in the movie. We have to have the ability to separate our brain and transcend time, space, and personality to be able to see the full vision of what we're talking about.
Well, perfect. Because we talk about the movie as a fictitious African nation, but in that fictitious African nation, everything is so real. That point that you're talking about, that point remind me right there by what you call Victoria Falls and Nyanza Falls.
Mm-hmm.
And that is exactly, because when I was doing the research the last few months, that is it right there. So a lot of realistic parts of the continent were put together to give you like a nice, glorified, incredible, beautiful feel. And that is important. It's important. We don't have a problem when we see all these incredible images of this different European nations looking nicer than they really are, because they don't show you all their poverty and all of the ghettos and all the crazy stuff that goes on in Europe. They just show us a beautiful city and a highlight and a few buildings, a few things, and we just think those countries are so beautiful and great. But we have some incredible parts of Africa, and I've never seen a more incredible part. I was even thinking about doing the helicopter ride where you see, where you see for real, that way I can just get some real footage and to see, and the whole hydroelectric system for Zambezi River.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking about all of the resources that you need to run the highest level of any operation to sustain your people.
Money. We got a phone call real quickly though. I'm going to put this on the table. This is way out there. This is way out there. But I have a book. I've done the research for the book. I have the outline for the book. The book is called Quantum Advancement, a spectacular discoveries along the magnificent journey to quantum advancement. And it deals with quantum science, quantum energy, black energy. I mean, it's really far advanced. But if I had the opportunity to have about $500,000 to start an institute to bring in the most brilliant young minds that we can find on all of the college campuses throughout the diaspora and from the continent, that we would begin to work on these technical theories of quantum advancement. Brother Bomani, I bet you we could deliver that flying machine that you see in that movie, and I bet you we could deliver it by the year 2030. It's a bit out there. We're going to take a call. Did you want to comment before we take this call?
No. Let the open the call up.
Yeah, I bet you we could start delivering some of the most magnificent technologies, because my brains are already working on where it would be coming from. And it's in the research through that book, Quantum Advancement. But you know something? We always love the callers. Area code 404. We have you up. Your name. Where are you calling from?
I'm looking for a professional joint.
I know that. Tabakuti.
Brother Tabakuti, how you doing, brother?
Hey. Doing great. How are you all doing?
We black and we shine. Brother Tabakuti, what a joy it is to hear your voice on your LIB radio. You're on with Brother Bomani. Yeah. What's on your mind today?
Good morning, Brother Bomani. I just called to say that what you're saying, you both are on track. Because I had to make corrections about the movie. They was trying to say, I said, look. I said, well, if you listen to LIB because of the, I knew those female soldiers was part of the Bohemian Empire, and I pulled up the pictures and showed these people, oh, yeah, they do have those colors on. And I've been trying to tell people, there are some people, they are stuck on stupidity, but I've tried to tell them, they said, well, that you got to come out of that and understand this for what it is. Because what I'm looking at is how this movie could be used to encourage more black people to go in and learn an African language, whereby we could begin to effectively communicate with one another on a global scale. I mean, there are just so many potentials that this movie could bring to African people on a global scale. I mean, it's just limitless. But I had to kind of separate from a couple of people because they just wasn't moving. And I said, because when I look at how the children are getting involved and they're excited, and you start those children to learn in African languages, because I don't know if you all remember, and you look at the technology, and this series started in like 66 or so. But there was another superhero that made it to the TV screen in the 90s called Mantis. And when Mantis premiered, he had a brother and a sister. They were Africans. They dressed in African clothing. And all three of them would speak an African language amongst one another at points in time. Mm-hmm. And it was great. It had a great platform and everything. But when the series was picked up, they took the African out of it and put a European guy in there, and the black people didn't support it. But I see nothing but support for this movie and what this movie could bring for us as a people. So I want to thank you all for having this conversation because, like I said, the possibilities of what we could pull out of this movie is just endless. And that's what I've been trying to tell people, that just chill out a little bit. You know, just look at it for the entertainment, look at it for the possibilities, and everybody will be happy. You know, because I think if people work this correctly, we could really begin to. You mentioned the farmers in Zimbabwe, you know, earlier. This could be the catalyst whereby we could encourage black people with engineering degrees to go into African countries and build, and with all kind of skills that the continent needs. And that's what I'm looking at. I know some people are not projecting things in that manner, but that's what I'm projecting when I interact with people, because I've talked to people here who they got home at like 2 o'clock in the morning going to see this movie. Mm-hmm. I'm not mad at them. I think that's a beautiful thing. But I've been also trying to tell them that, look, we have to begin to communicate effectively with one another so that this could spread in a positive way, and anyone that don't want to get on that positive wave, leave them.
That's right. That's right.
That's just how I say it, leave them. But I just want to say that, and I want to go back and listen to what you all are saying. But I think you are above point as to what can transpire with this movie, and I'm just pulling myself with people who are on the same wavelength or above wavelength that you are on, and so that we can make this thing work and make it work well.
Appreciate it, brother.
Brother Bomani, you have a response, and also Brother Tabakuti, check your email. I just sent you something. Brother Bomani, your response?
Absolutely, brother. Appreciate it. You know, we have to encourage our people to open their minds to a more positive world and understand that everything that we need to do and build, you know, we can make it happen. You know, we just have to change the mindset and stop feeding into propaganda and feeding into this being so just negative about everything, because the reality of it is all the people complaining about people spending money and going to the movies are the same people. When you go to their house, they have the same things in their house, things made by everybody else other than us. You know, so, those things are not giving out, you know, positive images to change the mindset, because our children are not learning about these things in school. So even if a movie come and it inspired them to do some of the studies of their own, and that's what I'm always telling our brothers and sisters that are parents, that, you know, we have to take a forefront to educate our children about all these important things and about positive images of us as a people, because those images are going to affect them when they get older, and to where some of us become self-hating, like some of the people who are complaining about this movie. So, you know, it just gives us a great opportunity, a great chance to start just looking at us in a more positive light, because I grew up with the point of just being black, being African is just being ugly, and I've been tortured with that all my life, because when people say it doesn't matter if you're born in Jamaica, or you're born here, when you look a certain way, when you have that African look like I have, and it was just always, it was never really anything positive. So now we're seeing a change in the dynamics where being African is cool, it's beautiful, it's cultural, it's important, it's relevant just like anything else. And I just appreciate that fact that other people are out there doing the work at different levels to where we can bring home a more positive view of Africa and a more great possibilities that we as a people can do anything.
That's right.
And
Brother Tabakuti, are we going to be able to convince you to join AfricaForTheAfricans.org and become one of our travelers and investors?
Yes, I'm gonna pull the email up, and I'm going to do just that.
That's
because
right.
see, my goal is this: I would like to see us as a people take this movie and we do the fundraising and raise the money for the next movie, and we can see a return, and we can see a big return on that investment. Mm-hmm. So I would definitely like to see that right there, because like I said, the possibilities are endless, because most people don't understand that, when you look at the potential, because they have all the mineral wealth that the world needs. And when you look at that from that perspective, it is a win-win situation. So that's what I've been telling people, is look at it from that perspective, and you won't have any issues when it comes down to, trying to build what has to be built, and we can move forward as a people.
Excellent, great point. And wanted to also connect a point in. One of the things that we can do if we really want to be this all independent on this and put our own money up and everything, we can always pitch these high tech movies to the modern day upcoming film industry in Nigeria and Ghana. So a lot of the people who complain that we gave all this money to white folks and everything, we need them to start doing step your game up and help us do this more all black if you want, or more Pan-African if you want, because I'm saying that sometimes it's not as simple as we look at it.
Right.
Things need to get done. Like in a country like Ghana, Ghana need things to move and things, so they're not going to wait on the Africans in the diaspora to come there and fix and save them. They have to make deals with India, China, and so on. But one of the things
Korea, Singapore, and Malaysia now are in deep investment, let alone Russia coming back in, etc. That is happening, and you're right, Brother Moani. They've been waiting on us.
Exactly. So we need to step our game and do more investment with each other, instead of just sitting back and just hating on what people have to do with other people, because a lot of our folks are not ready, or just sitting by in their house or their rooms and just making YouTube videos and complaining about everything and being a part of nothing to solve the problem. So while they're doing that, I and the rest of us, we're going to keep on moving forward. And I think we have a great progressive future as African people in the diaspora that's going to really be a part of the future of the African continent and really impact the world.
Brother Tabakuti?
Brother Bomani is true and correct in what he's saying, because right now it only has been a few students whereby I have been sharing information on educational issues like math and English, and they have been picking it up and going with it real well. But my next step is to give them a book list, with books on our history, so that they can understand that this information that they are learning came from their ancestors, and there is no excuse for them not understanding how to solve a word problem in mathematics. So that's one of the things that I've been working on here. It's not big, but like I say, if everyone did a little bit of something, we would be better off 10 years down the road.
No, it's so true.
And I'll let you guys go on that one.
Thank you, Brother Tabakuti, for all that you do. And
thank you.
I'll talk to you soon. Respect.
To
our listening audience, we got a couple of more minutes here. We're running a little bit over time, but this conversation is worth it. We're talking with Brother Bomani Tyehimba, founder and proprietor of AfricaForTheAfricans.org, an African tour and investment development group. And I always want to emphasize this point. traveling to Africa, Brother Bomani, and seeing those sights is beautiful. The first time I went to Egypt, I was just in awe. And I knew when I returned, I would never be the same person. Yet, when we went to Nubia, that portion down around Aswan in the southern part, where we were around the black so-called Egyptians, the level of the difference in poverty was really quite stark. And I wanted to do some things. I remember we went to see a village there, and when we docked the boat, there wasn't even a proper dock there. And it would only cost $300 or $400 to get some cement blocks and some mortar and to build a proper dock for the boats to dock in. And so when I came back, I tried for several months to see if we could get the group to raise the money to do that, but I was kind of frustrated that the attitude was, no, we just went there to see African glories and not necessarily to build it. And that was why when I started traveling with Africa for the Africans, I found so much more satisfaction, because I found myself surrounded by people whose commitment and intent was to leave our footprint there by building stuff and investing in stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to look at, we have missed out on some great opportunities as far as doing wonderful things in the African continent. We have had, like, at one point we had a movement of just, especially student groups going to different parts of Africa, and just lots of people going and coming back. But one of the things that we missed out on doing was really, like you're saying, leaving our footprints and leaving things in place and being a part of the future. That was one of the things that was never really pushed. And that's what I love about going back to Marcus Garvey, out of all of the visionaries and the people at that time, as far as just us building a future on the African continent. And it just makes too much sense for us to do that. But people get caught up into, like I hear the constant debate about the word they sold us into slavery. I mean, and it's just unbelievable. It's like, we're looking at too much points to this cause our disconnection from the African continent. It's never as simple as that. And that's why even when we do the journey, we take our brothers and sisters to a proper channel, to the Holocaust dungeons, so they could be educated and explain what really happened to our African ancestors. And it wasn't as simple as what, I guess people are telling each other that happened. So these journeys, it's beyond just traveling and just enjoying the beauty of Africa. It's really us putting things in place and really seeing ourselves living on the continent where we truly belong with our own brothers and sisters, and taking things to the highest level. And it's not that simple for all of us. I know a lot of people are not just going to get up and make a move like that, but it starts with opening your minds to doing the research and traveling. And one of the easiest ways, family, is to come on one of our journeys of a lifetime to Ghana. You can reach out to me directly at any point. Phone number is 404-931-9429. Email address AFT as in Tom, A2010@msn.com. So that's after 2010@msn.com. And the website, africafortheafricans.org. And you'll be introduced to a world of just clarity as far as itinerary, tour packages that will just give you a different feel of different parts of Africa. And got lots of videos on YouTube. You can find me, the name on there, Bomani Tayamba, or youtube.com, Bomani 2007. And it's just set up to give you a highlight of just a lot of the documentation that I do there in Ghana. I usually try to upload a lot of the highlights, so a lot of details. So yeah, just family.
Yeah, there is tremendous opportunity. People, come home to your soul, to your mindset, to your culture. Come home to your children. African nations have the youngest populations, Brother Burani, on earth. Uganda is the youngest nation on earth. Because they still love making babies and making families. And I'm particularly excited about Uganda for so many reasons. Uganda is just, it's clicking on so many levels. While Ghana is real easy to travel to because it's almost like traveling to Georgia. Ghana it's very close to what we're accustomed to. You can easily use English language, or if you want to learn other languages such as Tree, Ewe, Fanti, you could do those as well and use those as well there in Ghana. But you know, there are other parts of Africa where investment has much more dynamic returns. Now, investment in Ghana is still bringing pretty good return on investment. In fact, the World Bank, and this is in my book Futurism, the World Bank predicted that in 2018, Ghana will surpass Ethiopia in GDP growth. For 2017 and for the previous years, Ethiopia has led the continent in annual gross domestic product increase rate of growth. And they're saying that this year, Ghana, which has suffered fairly low GDP growth numbers in recent years because of commodity downturns, well, now we see those commodity prices reversing themselves. And Ghana predicted to have an 8.4% GDP growth for 2018, while Ethiopia then would fall to second place at only 8.3%. Which is itself more than 4 times the GDP growth rate of the United States.
Yes, the continent is growing at an unbelievable rate, and we as a people in the African diaspora have to step our game up and connect, because we're going to miss out on the greatest thing, the greatest reconnection ever. And I don't know what we'll have if we don't make it happen.
If we don't make it happen, I've seen the future of Afri-Amirs. I did put it in the book, The Repairing, and I put part of it in the book, Futuronomics. The future for Afri-Amirs, without seriously connecting to Pan-African development, transnational development, the future is really very bad. It's very bad. I don't even like to talk about it because it is so bad. And we've quantified that demographically, economically. We're stuck at productivity. For every $7 we spend, we produce $1 worth of goods and services. And as consumers in the United States, we're still 3/5 of a person. Our 13% of the population only has 7.7% of consumer spending share. So, and all of that gets even worse because we started aborting babies at such a high rate. Now we have so many of our baby boomers aging with very poor health. I could go on and on, Brother Bomani. I have whole chapters in books near the beginning of the books, not near the end of the books, of what it is that we have to separate ourselves from this pathway that we've been fixated on since the early 1970s.
Oh, wow.
So we have another pathway. It's Wakanda time, Africa rising.
Yeah, that was well illustrated. But, you and I have been talking about this, about the future of Africa and the positive ways of Africa way before we ever heard of a movie named Black Panther coming out. So I don't want people to think that we just got futuristic because of a movie.
Right.
You and I have been working on this since 2007, and I felt like we've came a long way in putting things in place, and to the point where we have had an incredible influence, believe it or not, of people who have lived there in Ghana. People who have decided make a commitment to move based on the conversations that we have, based on the tours that we have done, in where you have spoke at the business conference and you have shared information. Because one of the things is all those things are documented to the point where when we put them online, we don't even know who's watching them. But so many people call me throughout the day, over the last 10 years, and they've explained that this information has made a difference. And they're talking about the positive, the futuristic aspect of Africa that we're talking about, that they felt like it wasn't out there, even from the African continent, and people who represent different countries weren't even pushing certain things. Right. So it's impressive and it's incredible. But and then now we have this movie. But I'm basically telling people that me, Keedy, and a whole lot of us been pushing this way before this aspect of things.
And the movie is just a compliment to what we've been saying so far. Let's close with this example, Brother Bomani. The last trip that I went with you, and we went to Ghana, Benin, and Togo. We went to a place in Benin, a school called Ikoloja.
Yes.
And this young couple from the French Caribbean, from Guadeloupe, a Rasta couple, had a vision of going to Africa. Can you tell parts of that story, and then I'll fill in when certain key points need to be reinforced?
Yeah, the family is from French Guadeloupe in the Caribbean, and they moved to France and lived in France, and they had the dream of wanting to repatriate to Ethiopia, and certain things didn't work out, but they were able to get connected to Benin, and once they were connected to Benin, they were able to get a great amount of land to build a Pan-African school for children who didn't have schooling, and put a Pan-African curriculum where they learn about the history of Africans in the diaspora and also Africans on the continent, and they learn it from this, a complete Pan-African perspective. And also they had their own farm with, and the government gave more land, because when our brothers and sisters repatriated, they were very active and wanted to be a part of the future and the growth. And they have this incredible vegan restaurant, which is, along with Imacus, One Africa, that's some of the best food I've ever had on the African continent.
That's right. And then after their first initial investment in the Koleja school, to which I was honored to be there with Africa for the Africans, as we made donations and hugged these beautiful children and made our commitments. The government gave them 4 hectares of land. A hectare is 2.41 acres. And then they built this gorgeous little village, teaching the children to build a village. And what were the names of the streets in that little village where the gardens were located? Do you remember the names of the streets?
It was like, it was November 2009. I don't remember the exact name, but it was name of our ancestors from the African diaspora.
There was Marcus Garvey Boulevard, Amilcar Cabral, Harriet Tubman.
Exactly.
And then, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that just before we got there, the government of Benin, former Kingdom of Dahomey, very critical in our history, the government of Benin had made a second contribution of them of some 200 hectares of more land that they had yet to really start developing.
Yeah, and that was for farming and future development. When you have a progressive people that are doing wonderful things, you want to give them the resources that they need to really take it to the next level. So they have the school, the community, everything on one big property right now as we speak. Now. So I just have to just work some itinerary to really just do something like a Benin, Nigeria tour, and then spend a good amount of time on that, or a good day there on the land, and do the interviews and connect people, because it's a lot of incredible things that our people are doing, and we don't always get a chance to just show and document it, because when people look at news, I tell people news is this, that's why we just make our own documentation, because those are the things that we need to learn, that we have, we can go to Africa and make things happen, we can add certain importance in our life.
And let me add this, because I'm, me, Keedy, I'm a numbers man. 2.41 acres, that's per hectare. The government had donated to them above the original land that they had, above the 4 hectares they had donated that they had turned into this beautiful little village. But now they have 482 acres with this new government grant. 1 acre supports 3 people in the United States. So we'll just use that as a point of reference, even though in Africa we can make the efficiency much, much more. In essence, the government donated them enough land to create a village that can house 1,500 people.
Yeah, it's a whole community.
Donated to them because of the brilliance and the commitment of their original vision. Is that a good return on investment, Brother Bumai?
That's an awesome return. Plus, the great thing about it, it's a future expansion opportunity that's going to be there, and you can grow on it. So the community can build onto it, and so on. And then you have these young children that are being taught about nation building. So when they get to adult age, they have already been educated in the right way to keep things going and keep expanding. So that so it's to me it's just that simple, Brother Keedy. And that is one of the best examples. Our people repatriated. They did the work. They got the resources they need, and they made the moves, and they put things in place. Now they can enjoy a beautiful life in Africa for the rest of their life, and their children and children to come can do the same.
Bitcoin is reached its best And I've been following it.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is in a permanent decline. If people in the Bitcoin, they're still out here, people saying, get in Bitcoin. I'm saying, no, get out of Bitcoin and put your money into crash-proof assets. If a person had become wealthy in Bitcoin, and let's say they got in Bitcoin early, they made $30,000, and now their $30,000 is worth about $12,000, moving down consistent. I watch the chart. I know where Bitcoin is. It's going to settle in.
It's very, that's one of the things we always talk about. It's very unstable, and beyond this unstable is just the width of how unstable it is, where it can go so high or go so low quick.
That's right. But how unstable is taking those profits out of something that is unstable like that and putting it in land development, local labor force, infrastructure, building out to those fiber optic bundles that have been dropped. There's 60 fiber optic bundles dropped all around the coast of Africa. Somebody needs to build them out from the coast to the interior, to the villages, to the cities, to the suburbs. What would be the value of taking $100,000, Brother Bomani, and putting it into this type of African development you and I are describing?
Well, it'll be a game changer. One of the things that's definitely needed is just the high tech infrastructure in African continent to be laid out to more of the rural areas where you have you still have the majority of people who are, or at the same time too, it's the areas where you really want that technology. That way you can have a combination of just the technology and also just the culture. And that way, and then also relinquish the stress of more and more people wanting to just go into the city. Like I've heard people say that, well, I got to go to Accra because they just got the best internet, and they live like somewhere like far away from Accra. That would just change that dynamics to where more and more of us can focus on the sustainable development that's needed outside of the main cities. That way we can have more and more people start living outside the main cities and just begin to develop those areas to where we have a greater quality of life and things are more spaced out in countries.
I want to bring you back again soon, Brother Bomani, just to talk about ICT, information communication technologies, such as I talked about these fiber optic bundles. Had you heard this before of these 60 fiber optic bundle drops?
Along the coast of West Africa, yes. From Nigeria.
The ones that were first, 9 of them, I think, or 7 or 9 of them were the first drops in 2007 along the West Coast cities like Accra, Lagos, Abidjan, Casablanca, and a couple of other cities. Now there are 60 of them. The newer ones now, they've gone from 650 gigs per second to 1.3 terabytes per second in data carrying capacity, fiber optics. Now the BRICS countries, led by China, Russia, India, Brazil, South Africa, are going to put in their own fiber optic bundles because they resent the ones that are in there now that are all running through Great Britain and the United States before they get to the rest of the world. If you and I were able to utilize these new technologies or fiber optics itself and run a fiber optic cable line, which in Arizona costs $9 per foot to run, if we're able to get several $1 million and take a fiber optic cable line and start running it from these drops along the coast, lease out part of that data stream and run it to villages and to cities and growing areas, could we become wealthy doing stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely, because you made a great point. Everything is on the coast. When you look at all of the booming parts of West Africa, everything is on the coast. Except for Abuja in Nigeria and 1 or 2 other countries, but that makes more sense to start bringing some of the hard infrastructure inland, and just make it work. And that's why I'm a fan of satellite technology because when I was in the U.S. Navy, when I was on one of the ships in the middle of nowhere, they were able to just run civilization on that ship like it was its own mini nation.
That's right.
And that really taught me the importance of this satellite system communication, where you don't have your hard wires and odd lines that are running through.
That's right. And now African countries are placing their
Launching
own
satellites.
communication satellites in orbit. Ghana is now doing it, and Ethiopia is building a rocket to launch Ethiopian-manufactured communication satellites. Get in early, get in deep, Brother Bomani. We're gonna have to wrap it up because you and I could go on forever.
Absolutely, brother. Always good talking to you, Katie, and look forward to connecting with you on the futurism of Africa and Futurenomics, and let's keep it going. So keep up the good work, and we'll keep in touch, family.
Yeah, we got a lot of great work. Thank you, Brother Bomani, for all of the magnificent, visionary commitments that you have made. I see you, brother. There's a term, sawubona. I see you. And I see you in this greater context of being of tremendous service to a people that you and I both love to life. All right. And on that note, we're going to wrap it up for right now. What a great week it's been here on LAB Radio. One of the best weeks we have ever had. Your support of LAB Radio becomes evident by times like this of the week. It's the winter months. Over the past 3 months has been the most difficult time we've had at LAB Radio in almost all of our 16 years because the level of support and income was just so bad. Now we're coming up on the approach of the spring season, and things are turning around. People's economics are starting to flex up. We're going to share just a little bit. Go to our archives at 7MAC and see a value in the conversation like you just heard with myself and Brother Bomani. Listen back 5 times and take notes, do all your research, and get with us and be a part of all of this. Your first-hand participation in our progressive development economy has been missing, and we can correct that immediately. It is our action and not our words that's going to be the future that we will pass on to our children, to our children's children, to all of the children of African heritage around the world. Africa for the Africans.org. Go there, look up Brother Bomani, look up what they're doing, look at the photographs, and imagine yourself, your family in those photographs, and imagine the future in which we are empowered just as much or in excess of any other ethnic group on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Ashe, 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 yo. Thank you, Brother Bomani.